What's up guys, Dreams here. We are back, and today I want to make a video with some general tips that I used to get Emerald and underneath the 100 rank games. And I did this with mostly solo queue. There's just a little bit of partying, because I know a lot of people, they struggle getting out of the gold, platinum tiers, ranks, and they think it's because their teammates are bad, or that they just have bad luck. But as you can see, I'm at about a 63% win rate, and that's pretty solid and most likely not because of luck. Because there's almost always something you can improve on, especially in the lower ranks. And really, as long as you improve on these tips, you should be able to climb out yourself solo queue. So while there are some matches that are unwinnable, of course, overall, there are like certain game tactics that if used, you can easily increase your win rate. And that makes it like significantly easier to climb out of these lower ranks without just spamming hundreds upon hundreds of games. Because I see a lot of people that have like hundreds of games just to get to like platinum, and the only reason why they get the high is just because they spam games, but that takes a lot of time. So I definitely recommend using these tips instead, because that'll just increase your win rate and make it so much easier to climb, and they're general tips that you need even in the higher tiers. Another thing is that I've never really played League of Legends, and I haven't played this game too long either. Overall, I've done 145 games, and most of those were ranked. So I don't even know all the champs and all their abilities yet, and I don't have a single clue when it comes to like items and runes. So that kind of proves that if you just gain good game sense and use good game tactics, you can climb even if you're not comfortable with the game knowledge that you have. Now that I finally have more time to rank up because I'm more free now, hopefully I can get into diamonds sometime soon, get well into it. And if y'all enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below so that I know that y'all do enjoy these kinds of videos and that you all want more of it. But when ranking, there are about 3 main champs that I played. I played Alistar, Vi, and Lee Sin mostly. So I'm a jungle main, but support is my second role, and I get put as support a lot just because I don't think as many people like to support. But it's fine as long as you're comfortable with the supporter too. So for Alistar and Vi, I have 63-64% win rate, and then Lee Sin is a little bit higher. But yeah, I'm a really teamfight oriented person, as you can see. That's why I like playing Alistar a lot, because you're a monster in teamfights. Same with Vi, you're really strong in teamfights. But that's going to be about it for the talking, and I'll just have some gameplay in the background, and let's get right into the video. So I'm just going to talk about some general tips. Nothing too in detail, but just learning these general tips should help you climb up. And the first thing and the biggest thing that I want to talk about is objective control. And this is one of the biggest like learning curves for newer players, because a lot of times in the lower tiers especially, people will just chase kills and just go for kills and more kills and more kills. And that can really backfire, because kills are nice, but they aren't going to help you end the game unless you focus on the objectives, pushing turrets, getting dragons, herald, baron. So an example of where that can backfire is, let's say you have an early game focused comp, you have like a Draven, Lee Sin, which are early game focused champions. In the late game, your damage is going to fall off, and you aren't going to be able to win teamfights as easily. And without those dragon buffs that you should be getting in the early game, without getting the Baron buff, pushing in some turrets, it's going to be rough in the late game. And that can easily backfire. So if you watch my videos, you notice I'm always talking about the objectives, and I'm always focusing on them. So for example, when that first dragon spawns, I'm almost always keeping an eye on it, getting vision in the area, and setting up for it, and reminding my teammates too that it's spawning, because again, like even in higher tiers, players just forget, and it's really bad. And another thing you'll notice is I usually try and shop before that fight, since normally for that first dragon fight, for example, there's going to be a fight if you're playing it right. And another big thing is I almost always make sure I have my ult up around when that dragon fight is. Because let's say the first dragon spawns at 4 minutes, if you didn't know. And let's say you use your ultimate, which might have like a 1.5 minute cooldown, at 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Well, if that happens and then a dragon fight comes out, you're not going to have your ult for that dragon fight. And that's going to be very bad, because that's just going to make it so much harder to win that fight. And if you lose that first dragon fight, you die, then you start to get snowballed, then you're in for a struggle for the rest of the match, because even just winning that first dragon fight, it gives you such good position advantage. You get a good amount of gold, plus you just have the entire map control because you just won the entire fight. Now you could push in your waves, look what to do if you want to look for Herald. So just keep in mind when those objectives spawn, keep an eye on the timers when the dragons, Herald, Baron spawns. And see if you can get a rotate in to help your team try and force something if you have the numbers advantage. And again, I'm a jungler, so I'm almost always there before the objective spawns. Or like right when it spawns. Because just getting that position advantage too is really helpful. Since you already have positioned and vision in the area, you can almost always like catch somebody that's mispositioned or something. So you'll notice in my matches if you watch them, I'm almost always there, I almost always have my ult off cooldown, and I'm trying to get my teammates to come if they're available. But keep in mind, don't like get team wiped just for a dragon. That's definitely not worth it because then you give the enemy so much gold, and even with the dragon, if they just have so many more items and gold than you, then there really isn't too much you could do. But again, keep in mind what your team comp is good at. So if you have an early game comp, like you're running a Lee Sin, Rengar, Draven, something along those lines, you're really good at those small skirmishes when the first objective spawned. So make sure to keep that in mind too. Oh, another thing I want to touch up on is on that first dragon fight, it's very early on, like 4 minutes is when the dragon spawns. At that time, the death timers are not long at all. It's like maybe like 10 seconds, I think. I'm not entirely sure, but it's very, very short. So if you get a couple kills and you just waste your time just debating with your team what to do, by then the enemy will respawn. They'll come back if they notice that you're still debating whether you're doing it. And at that point, they're going to be full health and shopped. So just because you get a kill or something, if you take too long, I would not recommend forcing it because that can backfire again. But that's pretty much it for objectives. Just keep those things in mind. And now on to the next topic. And this is probably the next most important thing. Map awareness and lane priority are some really, really important fundamental concepts to this game. So a lot of players struggle with map awareness, lower tiers, higher tiers, pretty much everyone. So if you're new to this game and you're really having a hard time, what I recommend doing is going into a bot match and just focusing on the map awareness. Because that's bots and everything, you don't have to focus on the matchups and all that too much. But just focus on the map awareness. So let's say you're playing Baron lane or something. Focus on where the Baron lane is. Focus on where the jungler is or where he could be if he's coming to gank you, if he's in a position to gank you, how he can gank you, and where the enemy mid is, because the enemy mid can also rotate to the Baron lane. So I recommend just focusing on that, looking at your minimap every few seconds, like every 4 or 5 seconds at least, and seeing what you notice. And that'll also help with objective control too, because you can keep an eye on the objectives, and if Herald's spawning and everything. So if you're actually in this clip right now, you're noticing that I'm setting up visions. I've been trying to get our jungler to rotate, but again, they're being kind of slow. So like right now, if our jungler was here, we could have easily gotten that objective because we just gotten kills, but they're a little bit late, so we weren't able to. But back to the map awareness and lane priority. Lane priority is another concept that has to do with map awareness. What lane priority is it's pretty much just whoever in a lane can rotate first. So I'm going to use the Baron lane as an example. You have your 1v1 matchup. Let's say the lane is in the middle, everything's even. Nobody has a lane priority. Nobody really has an advantage to rotating. Whereas, let's say that the enemy is a little bit ahead of you and they have the wave shoved in against your turret. So then, if the wave is shoved into your turret, they can rotate before you. So I'm just going to use the Herald as an example. Let's say I'm a jungler and I'm taking Herald, just for some reason I am. And that's right next to the Baron lane, of course. So let's say that the enemy has their wave shoved in, they have a small advantage, and I'm taking Herald. That is not a good thing, because what can happen is the enemy Baron laner, they can rotate because they have that advantage. They have that wave shoved in, and they're ahead of my teammate. So they can rotate, whereas my teammate, if he tries to rotate, the enemy Baron laner can just cut him off and pretty much kill him if he does try. So if that Baron laner rotates and then the enemy jungler notices, then it'll be a 2v1, so that can go badly for me. Whereas on the other hand, if my lane had the priority, if my laner had the wave shoved in, and they were a little bit ahead, then they can rotate to help me. If let's say that the enemy jungler tries to contest me, it's looking like a 1v1, but then my Baron laner notices it, and they have that wave shoved in, and the enemy laners all the way against their turret, well then my laner can rotate and help me and make that a 2v1. And that's a super important concept. So for example, Herald fights. There's a lot of times in the jungle, right when that Herald spawns, if both the junglers meet at the same Herald, mid lane especially, they can get rotated onto both sides. So that's something to watch out for. Also when you're going for jungle invades too. And it's something to watch out for if you are a laner, because if your jungler's if your jungler's invading, so let's say that I'm invading the enemy jungle, if the enemy laner has the wave shoved all the way in and my teammates are all the way back to the turret while I'm trying to invade or take an objective, they're going to be the ones to rotate, and next thing you know, I'm going to be outnumbered really badly. And that's a huge mistake that a lot of players, especially around the gold tier and around there, make. Because they think they're all fancy going for these invades, and then they don't realize that their teammates are in a position to help them if they need help, and then the enemy rotates on them and kills them. And they're just like, team, where are you? Well, the teammates couldn't rotate. That's on you to look at your teammates and see if they can rotate. And it's also on you as a laner to watch if your teammate might need to rotate if they are trying to invade, and just set up in case they need help. So that's it for lane priority, map awareness. Again, lane priority, map awareness, objective control, those are the big things that I'd recommend focusing on. Next thing I want to touch up on is be aware of the enemy jungle, because a lot of times the enemy jungle path is pretty predictable, especially in like the mid tiers. So, for example, a lot of junglers, they'll path from their red buff to their blue buff, and then they'll gank either the mid or the lane side that they're on. So if you can see like what the enemy jungler position is, what their pathing is, you can usually see what lanes they can gank. So in this game, it's a little bit weird because I got invaded, but right now my options are either gank that mid lane or go to bot side. So over here now, the top lane doesn't have to be worried about a gank because I'm over here. But let's say that I was on the top side of the map, since normally my jungle pathing would have been take the red buff, blue buff, and then scuttle on the blue side. Then I would be hovering on the Baron lane side and mid and see if there's any good ganks. So at that point, the enemy Baron laner has to be aware that I could be ganking him. Whereas the enemy Dragon laner can notice that, okay, I'm on the top side, then they could play as aggressive as they want on the bot side without worry of me ganking him yet. And as a jungler, there's nothing that annoys me more than laners that don't have awareness of the enemy jungle like that, and then they go and die like 2 or 3 times to the enemy jungle just getting ganked, and then the enemy jungle starts to snowball because they got those 2 or 3 kills, and then they type jungle diff in chat, like I was the one that fed them, when really it's kind of my laner's fault for not having good awareness. Because although you're not playing jungle, the jungle can gank you, so it is on you also to try to see where the enemy jungle is. And of course, if your jungler can help you, like if you can let your team know where the enemy jungle is, that's of course the best thing to do, because it can definitely help your teammates. So another thing I wanted to talk about was enemy laners that are just good at rotating. So heroes or champs with global ults that can just ult anywhere, Twisted Fate for example, you always have to be cautious of things along those lines. Or just enemy laners that are good at rotating in general. So champs like Katarina, Diana, those are very good rotating champs from the mid lane, and they can easily go and get ganks off. So just keep that in mind. And now I want to talk about vision a bit. Do not neglect vision. Most players do neglect vision, but having deep vision in the enemy jungle can be so beneficial. Especially because in this game, like, people miss positions so badly. It's kind of sad, honestly, but people get caught out so often. It's really kind of surprising. I wasn't expecting that when I first started this game, but a lot of times you can easily catch people out, and with deep vision, you can see when these enemies miss position and try and do something with your team if you do notice that somebody is caught out. But another thing I want to talk about is don't die for caught out teammates. If somebody's for sure dead, don't try and save them. I mean, of course, sometimes it might work out, but you dying will not help, of course, because let's say you have your 5v5, of course, and then whenever your teammates is overextended, they die. It becomes a 4v5. Well, with the 4v5, it's still hard for them to do something like Baron. You might still be able to contest that and fight that. But if your support, let's say, tries to go and save them, and they die too, then it's a 3v5, and that becomes so much easier for them to do Baron. So again, as I was talking about that dragon, notice how I'm at that dragon, I'm always just going back to it because we're always just fighting over here. Okay, but that was all I want to talk about for that. And that brings me to my next point, which is group in the late game. Try not to get caught out. See if you have a teammate nearby you so you don't just get like rotated on by like 2 or 3 people and then just die. And watch your waves too. If you get your waves shoved in and your waves are in good position, try and group and look for a pick with your teammates. And now I just wanted to talk about more of personalized stuff like heroes you want to play. So what I did was I learned 2 roles, support and jungle, and I have a couple of champs in each role that I can play. And that's what I recommend doing it. Learn the ins and outs of those heroes and stick with them, in my opinion, until you... So right now I'm just sticking with these heroes because for now it's working for me. Like if it's not broke, then I don't need to fix it. So I'm sticking with these. And then once I start to plateau more, I'll learn more heroes for sure. But if you're looking for some good gameplay, I definitely do have good gameplay on my channel. Good objective control and everything. If you want to see what I'm talking about, like, applied, I definitely do recommend my videos. So you need to learn the strengths and weaknesses of your hero, or champ. Sorry, I keep on calling them heroes. I played Vainglory too much, so still trying to get that out of my system. But learning the strengths and weaknesses of your champ and what you like your champs into, the matchups you like and what you don't. It's really important. And another thing I'll talk about is simulating 1v1s in your head. So let's say you're doing a lane matchup. You have your Baron lane matchup 1v1. You want to think about what abilities you have, what abilities the enemy has, and how those interact. So a big thing is gap closing for a lot of heroes. So for Vi, you want to stay onto the enemy and stick with them. So what I do is I don't waste my first ability. Let's say I'm going up against an Israel. I'm just calling out. I'm not going to just go in with my first ability and just barely use it. Because if you waste your first ability, you don't have ult off cooldown, then the Israel will just dash away and you have nothing else to gap close. So instead I try and get onto him first, save my first ability, and then right after they use their dash to try and blink away, then I'd use my first ability to gap close again. So just small things like that is important to keep in mind. So going off that, learning your champ, you need to learn how to play your champ like 2 ways. You need to learn how to play aggressive and how to kite back with them. Because a lot of times, team comps are bad in general, just in this game. People just play whatever they want. They don't actually look for team synergy. Because, for example, let's say you have an Olaf and a Diana, which are hard dive champions, but then you also have, let's say, a Kaisa Ziggs, which look to peel. Then you have 2 champs that are exact opposites, and you're going to have to learn how to work with that, because that's just going to be the way it is in ranked. So a lot of players, like, when I first started playing Vi, you have a really big... It's just natural to want to play aggressive, but you also have to learn how to kite back with them, because in those scenarios, and in many other scenarios, just sometimes randomly, your team will be kiting back, and you need to learn when to use your abilities, when you can look to try and turn things around, who you should ult. So learning how to play your heroes 2 ways is super important in my opinion. And going off that, watch other people that are better than you and just see what they do. Twitch, YouTube, 2 best ways to just watch players that are good at this game. See how they played their champs. I'm sorry if I keep on calling them heroes. I don't know if I am, but I might accidentally be doing it. So, yeah, just keep that in mind and see what they do and try and learn from your mistakes. Fix up whatever you're making the mistakes, and really that's about it. Learn from your mistakes. Try and use your head. That's pretty common sense, but just use your head, like use your brain power. A lot of times people just play like casually, they're just tapping along, not really thinking about what they're doing, and that's a pretty big mistake. Like if you actually think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, you can make some pretty good improvements. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about, just those basic tips. If you work on those, you should be able to rank up a decent amount. And just watching other people's gameplays, seeing what they're doing. But I guess I'll just talk about this gameplay to finish off. So we were doing pretty good in this match. I know we got the first dragon. I don't know if we got the second one yet. Yeah, we only got the first one. Actually, the enemy Shyvana was going for the Herald, and I chose to go for the dragon because I saw they're at the Herald, so I made that trade-off, which I think is worth it because as long as you don't do anything, like they aren't really getting too much out of Herald. So actually, they just spawned Herald here, and notice how I'm telling my teammate dragon spawning because the Israel is fed on our team. I got him a lot of kills early, and right now they're in that top lane dealing with Herald, which is not what I want because this dragon is spawning. If they force this fight over here and we don't have Israel, then that's not good. So that's why I'm telling Israel it's worth it if we lose a tower, but we can't lose this fight. So now Israel's here and we could just completely destroy this. And again, as I was saying, learn how to play your hero two ways. Notice how I ult the guy who's diving my teammates, get him off my backline, and now I can go back in. So now we just get those kills, and again, that Herald, I don't even know if we'll get that turret up there, but that's good that Israel didn't stay because Israel deals so much damage just because they were pretty fed this match. And now we just get this dragon. And of course, I'm running the sweeper because I'm a jungler. Gotta watch out for the cams. This Ahri comes to contest, and he just gets caught out. If you're an Ahri, like, don't do that because you aren't going to be able to really do anything. I can outsmite you if you aren't a jungler. So now we're just resetting, trying to get our health back. So over here now, I'm just looking at the map. We're pretty far ahead this match. There's really no reason why we should lose as long as we don't get caught out and die. So now I really want my team to play safe because we can win a 5v5 just because we're so far ahead. So I'm like, I don't want him to take any risk. I mean, it's fine because we actually are far ahead, so they actually kind of made a misplay. He went for bad engage to Renekton, but I want to push these waves out, make sure that they don't take any of the inhib turrets or anything, so. Over here, I'm just pinging him, be careful. They're getting kills, which is good, of course. So now I'm thinking, like, can we do Baron, but they don't want to, so it's fine. So for now, I'm just checking out if any of their jungle is up. Ooh, that's another thing I want to talk about. Actually, their jungle is here, so I'll go right onto the Shyvana, and he ults out. Notice what I do now. I know that Shyvana just wasted their ult. I'm like, let's take this dragon, because a Shyvana without ult is pretty much useless. So we can easily force this fight here. And if they do rotate, then I'm just going to turn right onto him. I'm not going to take the risk for the smite battle. I'm just using this to bait, at least, so that they do come this way. And once they do come this way and overextend to try and see this Baron, then I'm just going to go right onto him. But I don't even think they even contest this. But yeah, as I was saying, another thing I want to talk about is, if you have nothing to do, take the enemy jungle. A lot of times what players do, which is another mistake, is they keep on trying to push one turret, even when they can't get anything from it. Like, they'll keep on pushing the wave in, but they can't get the turret, because that just happens sometimes. You don't have, like, the advantage to take a turret. Of course, with the Baron buff you do, but sometimes you don't. Just fall back, don't overstay, because that's what happens when you keep on trying to take one turret, because the enemy has the safety of the turret, you do not. So if you make a mistake, it's going to be bad on your part. So instead, even if you just want to retreat and then take the entire enemy jungle, just like take it all pretty much. And that Lux got super lucky over there. Thought I could get him. Over here, I actually wanted to get a recall because I have a lot of gold, but I knew my teammates wanted to keep on pushing, so I thought I'd just stay with them. Another thing that I forgot to talk about was pinging. Just like spam your pings. If you see an enemy rotating, if you think there's an enemy jungler there, or if you want to take an objective, just spam your pings. It makes it so much more likely that your teammates see and know what you're talking about. But that's pretty much it for this match. Again, these were just some general tips. I hope y'all enjoyed. If y'all enjoy these kinds of videos, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Comment down below if you did like this, so I know that y'all want more of it. But anyways, that's going to be about it for this video. I can definitely make more in-depth guides on other things like wave management, certain heroes along those lines if y'all want. But yeah, I was pretty much just able to gap the enemy jungle this match with good rotations and stuff. So that's going to be it. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so yet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video.